Jaguars. Congratulations to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I thought they were over. I thought they were done. They are now 7-8. And even though that doesn't put them in great position for a wild card berth, it doesn't matter because they are in the AFC's answer to the NFC South, which coincidentally is the AFC South, where under 500 may get you into the postseason because the Titans are sinking, the Jaguars are rising, and the way the Jaguars sit now, they just have to be one game behind the Titans going into Week 18, and that game is for all the marbles because the Jaguars stunned the Titans a week and a half ago as part of this winning streak they're now on. 3 straight wins for the Jaguars for the first time since 2017. Back-to-back road wins. I mean, things that this team just hasn't done. They're getting it done, and it all goes back to, Charean, as you said, Doug Pederson, and also the ascension of Trevor Lawrence, becoming the guy that we thought he would be when he was the first pick, and the guy that Zach Wilson has yet to be as the second pick.
Yeah, and I'd say right now the Jaguars are the favorites in the division because of what's happened in Tennessee with the loss of Ryan Tannehill. I have no faith in Malik Willis to go in there and lead that team to post. Look, the Titans may very well lose to the Texans this week. I am not going to be at all surprised if that happens because you look at what the Texans have done over the last 2 weeks. Believe it or not, a one-win team is playing really, really hard right now. Should have beaten the Cowboys. Should have or could have, whatever word you want to use there, beat the Chiefs, lost in overtime last week. This is not going to be a gimme game for the Titans in any way, shape, or form, and I'm not going to be surprised, Mike. In fact, I probably would pick the Texans to beat the Titans this week. So Jaguars are in great position right now to get into the postseason. And if they do, you look at what kind of streak they'll be on when they get there. They'll be playing really good football at the right time. They're not a team that you would want to play in the postseason, I don't think, with the way they're playing right now.
Can we please put the graphic back up of the playoff picture in the AFC? Because I want to make sure that I am reasonably close to being moderately correct when I begin to rattle off the possibilities for the Jaguars if they end up winning the division and then end up in the 4 seed. And as I filibuster, there it is. They would be hosting, right now as it stands, Baltimore in the wild card round. Now, let's see. I've got their schedule up. Didn't they play Baltimore this year, and did they beat Baltimore? They beat Baltimore 28-27. So how do I forget that? It's all starting to blur together. Whether it's the Ravens, whether it's the Chargers, whether it's the Dolphins, that's who would go to Jacksonville if the Jaguars win the division. They could win at home,
absolutely,
in the wild card round, unlike the Buccaneers, who, but again, I don't rule out Tom Brady ever, but Cowboys-Buccaneers, most people would assume the Cowboys would win that game. I think the Jaguars can win in the wild card round, and then they'd have to go to Buffalo. And who knows? Who knows? This is a team, and we say this every year. Somebody gets hot around Thanksgiving. They win enough games to get in, and they carry that postseason mindset into the postseason. And if you go play the 1 seed after winning a playoff game and after winning all those games to get yourself in position to get in the playoffs in the first place, and you're taking on a team that hasn't played in 14 days, man, that's an advantage. You're loose. No one expects anything. You're supposed to lose. The other team's maybe a little flat-footed. You catch them with an uppercut, and the next thing you know, you do what the Jaguars did to the Broncos, Charean, back in 1996. Exactly. Remember that one?
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually there, I think, for that game. What do you think about what the Jaguars did the last time they were in the postseason, Mike? They made it all the way to the AFC Championship game. They surprised some people because they were playing really well that year. So they have a chance. They have a chance to do some damage in the postseason.
Jaguars actually should have been in the Super Bowl in 2017. Yeah. I know Jaguars fans have been waiting patiently for us to say good things about their team, but that game was a 10-point lead for the Jags in the fourth quarter. There was a fumble that was missed in real time by the officials. It was the same thing that happened to the Vikings on Saturday with the Chandon Sullivan touchdown. You can overturn the ruling on the field that a player was down by contact, award possession to the defense if there is clear and obvious evidence of a clear recovery by the defense, but that's it. You don't get the return. because it was Miles Jack, if I recall correctly, that scooped that ball up and took it to the house, and it would have been a 17-point lead for the Jaguars in Foxborough without nearly enough time for even the Patriots and Tom Brady to come back, although they probably, if it makes you feel any better, Jags fans, even if you'd been up 17 in that game, the Patriots probably would have found a way to come back and win it. So I am pleasantly surprised, and this balances it out, because it's been a rough year for Chris Sims with Zach Wilson. Because Chris was one of the number one top Zach Wilson supporters, and he was not alone. This wasn't just some wild take. People saw potential greatness in Zach Wilson, his high-end performances at the college level. I mean, people are going to get dragged for comparing him to folks like Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes, but he showed that kind of potential. It just hasn't translated. But Chris was also all over the Jaguars, and it looked like he was going to be wrong there, because they started the season 2-0, and then they were in Philly, I think at 2-1 or 2-0, I can't remember. Again, don't expect me to remember 3 months ago. But they were up 14-0, and that fell apart, and it felt like they fell apart. And it took them a while to get going again. And as Trevor Lawrence says, it was that game in London, the loss to the Broncos, that woke him up. And it was win one, lose one, win one, lose one, and now they've won 3 in a row, and they're on their way. And I look, this is nothing against the Titans, but I look at it this way. Tennessee, you had your chance. You had your chance. You were running away with it. You were lapping the field, and you blew it. So step aside and let the hot team in. We don't want the diminished team that is just barely getting in by the skin of their teeth with a backup quarterback. We don't want that for the playoffs. We want the best teams. And right now, unfortunately, for the Titans, the Jaguars are the best team in the AFC South. So that's why, Titans fans are going to be like, well, what's wrong with us? What did we do? Well, you didn't seize your opportunity to take the division when you could. Now there's a better team. It's kind of like why people want to see the Lions in the NFC. We want the best teams in. We want the best football games. We don't want 19-3 in a playoff game. We don't want a team that is sinking, that just manages to hold on and then get their ass kicked the next week. We want a team that's on the rise. And the Jaguars are clearly that team in the AFC, Charean.
Yeah, there's absolutely no question about that. And as I mentioned earlier, Mike, Doug Pederson now is in that Coach of the Year consideration with what they've done over the second half of the season, because they are playing really, really well. And he's got them turned around, and he has Trevor Lawrence looking like a Pro Bowl quarterback the way he's played over the last few weeks. And that's really been the difference for this team. But I admit I had not seen very many Jaguars games up until the last 2 weeks. And now the last 2 weeks, I've seen every single play, and I've been very impressed. That comeback last week against Dallas, to me, was the most impressive game. One of the most impressive games that I've seen this season, just the way they had the will to come back from 17 down against a really good team and a really good defense. And look, Mike, they had over 500 yards against a Cowboys defense that we think is pretty good. And they just rolled over that Cowboys defense in the second half. So, yeah, to me, they're a contender in the AFC. I don't think you can rule them out from that, the way they're playing right now. And I think Doug Pederson's in that Coach of the Year conversation.
And, the fact that they won that game down 17, they did to the Cowboys what the Patriots would have had to do to them in the 2017 AFC Championship game, and went to overtime, had to play extra football, and then had to turn around and play on the road on a Thursday night. That's one of the reasons why I thought the Jets were going to win. And that makes what they did last night, Wolfie, if you're still watching, and hopefully you are in the UK, that makes it even more impressive that they were able to pack it up, take it to New York, short week, crappy night, almost said the other word. If we weren't live in the UK, I would have said it, and got the win, and got it fairly impressively. I mean, look, the story of the day is, what the hell did the Jets do with Zach Wilson? But the reality is the Jaguars came, they saw, and they conquered, and now I hope they get in. It's going to be fun to watch. Before the season, if someone had said to you, oh, the Jaguars are going to be playing the wild card round, or like during the season, you'd be like, roll your eyes, who cares? This is now a team you want to watch. As you said, this team is morphing into appointment viewing, and it's hard to get past the uniforms. It's like with the Bengals last year. It was hard to accept the Bengals as a good team because you're so used to looking at the the orange and black helmet and the uniform and think that's a bad team. Why do I want to watch this team? I want to watch a good team. That's part of the mental gymnastics, Charean, we're going to have to do as the Jaguars. When they made that old two-tone helmet look pretty good in 2017, now they're making their kind of old-school uniform, which looked pretty good last night. It's looking better and better every week. The Jaguars helmet and whatever uniform combination they have, when you win, all of a sudden that looks a lot better.
Well, and it's like Al Michaels opened last night saying, when we looked at the schedule, who would have thought that the Jets and Jaguars would be a game that we'd want to watch? But it was going into last night. It was a game that I had on my list of games that I thought would be really good games. And it turned out the Jets didn't show up, so it wasn't quite as good as perhaps we all had hoped it would be, but I think the Jaguars made a statement in that game last night. They never gave the Jets any hope at all. Even when Trevor came in, I'm like, well, if they score a touchdown here, they're within one score, but they never gave them that hope that they could come back in that game. It just never felt like the Jets from start to finish were going to win that game, and Jaguars did what they had to do, and kudos to them going forward. Now they get a mini bye, Mike, which is huge at this point in the season.
I remember when the schedule came out for Amazon, and that was one of the big points of interest. What quality of schedule will the NFL give to Amazon, given it's streaming only? And, instead of 20 million people watching on Thursday night, they're going to be lucky to get 10, and it'll be interesting to see how many watched last night. But when I saw Week 16, Jaguars at Jets, I thought that is the moment. And I've been there. I think we've all been there. Charean, you were probably there about 5 years or so ago when you started working for PFT, where you look in the mirror and you ask yourself, what have I done? That would have been the what have I done moment for Al Michaels when he saw that. And he still may have felt that way at times last night, but at least there was one team on the field that played worthy of qualifying for the postseason. Let's go ahead and take a break. We found a way. Very impressive, Charean. We found a way to talk about that game for 53 minutes. When we return, we'll talk not quite as long about what was supposed to be the game of the week. Now, who knows? We do know this. Minshew Mania is back. We'll talk Cowboys-Eagles when PFT Live continues right after this. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.